Hey guys, tonight we're going to drift back in time, all the way to the heart of a great empire built on water, to a place where gardening wasn't just a hobby, it was an art form, a spiritual practice, and the foundation of society that was surprisingly calm. Imagine the soft lapping of water against a wooden canoe, the gentle rustle of reeds in a humid breeze, and the distant, muted hum of a city that rises like a mirage from the lake. You're there, a young Aztec commoner in the 1400s, living a life that is both demanding and deeply connected to the natural world. This isn't a story of sacrifice and conquest, but of mud, seeds, and the profound peace that comes from a life lived in rhythm with the seasons. A quick reality check, though. In our modern world, we'd probably get a nasty infection from the lake water within a day. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing on the shore of Lake Texcoco, or rather, what passes for a shore. The city of Tenochtitlan, the beating heart of the Aztec world, isn't on solid ground at all. It's an island, a magnificent metropolis that grew from the mud and reeds of a vast, shallow lake. The air is thick with the smell of damp earth and the unique, slightly sulfurous scent of the water. The sun, a warm, heavy blanket, is just starting to climb over the mountains that ring the valley. You trudge through the reeds, the soft mud squishing between your toes, heading towards a small, flat-bottomed canoe, a chalupa that you and your family share. This isn't a leisure cruise. This is your commute. Today, you will begin the process of building your very own chinampa, a floating garden. Your family has been planning this for months, saving up the small scraps of obsidian and woven baskets needed to trade for necessary materials. Your father, a man whose hands are permanently stained with the dark, rich soil of the lake bed, has taught you everything you know. He's told you that this is more than just a farm. It's a living thing, an extension of your family, your community, your very soul. You grab the woven reed basket and a large forked stick you'll use as a pole. The lake, which provides everything from fish to drinking water, after it's been filtered of course, is also a constant threat. Historians still argue whether the water levels were a more significant factor in daily life than the political intrigues of the capital city. The city itself, a marvel of engineering, seems to hum a life of its own in the distance. But out here, on the lake, it's just you, the water, and the promise of new life. You push off from the shore, the gentle rhythmic sound of the pole pushing against the lake bed a familiar lullaby. The sun is a little higher now, its warmth seeping into your bones as you paddle your chalupa out towards a cluster of existing chinampas. Your destination is a small, unmarked patch of open water, a future garden that exists only in your imagination right now. The task before you seems impossible, to turn this empty space into a fertile, living piece of land. But you've seen it done 100 times. You know the steps by heart. The first step is to create the foundation, the submerged fence that will hold everything in place. You begin by driving long, sturdy poles made from the trunk of an awi tree, the Mexican cypress, into the soft lake bed. This is backbreaking work. The pole, heavy and unwieldy, resists your efforts, and with each push, you feel the strain in your arms and shoulders. You grunt with the effort. The pole slowly sinking into the muddy bottom. One pole, then another. You work in a line, creating a large rectangular boundary, a watery cage that will eventually be your new garden. This is a rhythmic, meditative process. The gentle splash of water and the thud of the pole against it will becoming a steady beat. With the poles in place, you begin the second and arguably most important step, weaving the fence. You pull bundles of reeds and rushes from the side of your chalupa and begin to weave them between the poles. It's like creating a giant, underwater basket. The reeds, still green and supple, bend easily to your will, intertwining to form a dense, watertight barrier. You have to be careful to make it tight, with no gaps, or your hard work will simply wash away. This is where your skill really comes into play. A clumsy hand would leave holes, but your fingers, trained since childhood, move with a practiced grace. You work for hours, the sun climbing higher, sweat beading on your forehead and dripping down your back. The finished fence, a dark green rectangle against the shimmering water, is a source of immense pride. It's the skeleton of your future garden. Historians still argue whether the Chinampa system was invented by the Aztecs or adapted from earlier civilizations like the Zacamilca, who lived in the same valley. This isn't just a fence. It's a piece of history, a continuation of a tradition that has fed millions for centuries. A clumsy neighbor once tried to use the wrong type of reeds, and his whole Chinampa fell apart during a flood. We all had a good laugh about that one. Once he was safely rescued. Of course, the most challenging part of building the fence is working in the deeper sections, where the water comes up to your waist. Your feet are planted in the soft, gooey mud, a rich mixture of centuries of decomposing plants and fish waste. It smells, well, not great, but it's the smell of life, of fertility. This mud is a foundation of everything. You reach into the water, pulling up handfuls of it, and pack it around the base of the reed fence to seal it. This messy, squelching work is a physical connection to the earth, or in this case, the lake bed that will sustain you and your family. It's hard to imagine anyone being stressed while doing this. Sure, it's hard work, but it's a focused, deliberate kind of effort with a tangible result right in front of you. It's a peaceful, purposeful kind of exhaustion. You remember a funny story your father told you about his first time building a Chinampa. He got so engrossed in the weaving that he forgot to eat and passed out from the heat. He woke up floating on a pile of reeds, a very confused turtle staring at him. He learned his lesson about taking breaks. You pause for a moment, wiping your brow, and look at your handiwork. The rectangular plot of land you created looks small now, but you know its potential. It's a blank canvas, ready to be filled with life. With the frame of your new garden now firmly in place, a green rectangle floating on the placid surface of the lake, you feel a deep sense of accomplishment. But this is just the beginning. A fence without soil is just a cage in the water. The real work, the true act of creation, is about to begin. You paddle your chalupa over to the nearest dredge canal, the water here deeper, more murky green. This is where the magic happens. The canal beds are a constant source of the richest, most fertile soil you'll ever find. It's a thick, black mud, heavy with decaying plant matter and the nutrient-rich sediment that has settled over centuries. This mud is the lifeblood of the Chinampa system. You grab the large forked stick you brought with you and begin to scoop. This isn't a gentle task. You thrust the stick deep into the canal bed, feeling it sink into the soft, silted bottom. You lever it up, bringing a heavy, dripping glob of mud to the surface, and then, with a practiced flick of your wrist, you toss it into the waiting rectangle of your new Chinampa. The mud lands with a satisfying splat, a dark, fertile plop that is a promise of future harvests. You repeat this motion again and again, a steady, rhythmic cycle of scooping, lifting, and tossing. Each splat is a step closer to a living, breathing garden. The sun is now a fiery orb in the sky, and you can feel its heat on your skin, but the work is so focused, so engrossing, that you hardly notice. Your mind is quiet, your body moving on instinct, a part of a larger, ancient rhythm. Your ancestors have done this exact same thing for generations, a continuous chain of life and labor. As you work, you notice the rich texture of the mud. It's not just mud, it's a living thing. You can see bits of shell, the remains of aquatic insects, and the fine, almost silky threads of decomposed reeds. This is nature's own compost, a perfect mixture of everything a plant could ever need. A modern botanist would be thrilled to get their hands on this stuff. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' advanced knowledge of soil enrichment was intuitive or the result of systematic, passed-down agricultural science. A quirky fact: because the canals were constantly being dredged to build new chinampas, the lake was a self-sustaining system. The very act of creating more farmland helped to keep the waterways clear for navigation. The process is slow, but you can see your progress with each passing hour. The bottom of the reed enclosure, once just an empty space filled with water, is now a dark, muddy floor. As the layer of mud grows thicker, it starts to displace the water, and you can see a small, dark island taking shape. You have to be careful to spread the mud evenly, creating a flat, consistent surface. A lopsided garden is a disaster waiting to happen. You remember your uncle's first chinampa. He got lazy and didn't level the mud properly. When the first heavy rain came, his entire crop slid right off the low end and into the canal. He had to start over, much to the good-natured teasing of the rest of the family. He learned his lesson, though. Now his chinampas are flattest and most productive in the village. The sun begins its slow descent toward the mountains, and the air cools slightly, carrying the scent of flowers from a nearby chinampa. You're tired now, your muscles aching from the repetitive motion, but you push through, driven by the vision of a future garden. The last few scoops of mud feel impossibly heavy, but you get them into place, evening out the surface with the back of your hand. You stand in the chalupa, looking down at your creation. It's not a masterpiece yet, but it's a start. It's a promise. A new piece of land born from the water is now ready for the next, most crucial step, the planting. As the last rays of sunlight turn the lake a soft, shimmering gold, you feel a deep, calming peace settle over you. This isn't just work, it's a ritual. It's the cycle of life, a physical embodiment of the earth and water coming together to provide for your family and your people. The day's labor is done, and you know, with a certainty that fills your heart, that the hard work is its own reward. The new chinampa lies before you, a dark, fertile rectangle patiently waiting. The sun, now well and truly risen, casts a bright, benevolent light over the lake, and a gentle breeze rustles the reeds at the garden's edge. You spent the morning smoothing the rich mud, patting it down with a paddle to create a perfectly flat, even surface. It looks like a giant, dark cake ready for decoration. But instead of frosting, you'll be adding life itself. This is the moment you've been working towards, the culmination of all the sweat and effort of the past 2 days. Today, you will plant. You carefully lift the woven basket from your chalupa. Inside, nestled in dry grass, are the precious seeds. You have kernels of maize, small and hard like yellow jewels, and the dark, kidney-shaped beans that will grow up the maize stalks. There are also tiny, delicate squash seeds, a vital part of your family's diet, and the even smaller, almost dust-like seeds of amaranth and chili. Each seed represents a promise, a hope for the future. You feel the weight of this responsibility in your hands. This is the oldest, most fundamental contract between a human and the earth, or in your case, the lake. You begin with the maize. You walk carefully along the edge of the chinampa, your bare feet sinking slightly into the soft, yielding mud. With a pointed stick, you poke a shallow hole, a little divot in the dark surface. You drop 3 maize kernels into the hole, a tiny trinity of potential, and then gently cover them with mud. You repeat this motion, a slow, steady rhythm. Space in the holes just so. It's a precise, practiced art. A quirky tidbit. The Aztecs believed planting 3 seeds together was not just good luck, but a practical way to ensure at least one would sprout and grow strong, a natural form of redundancy that still has its echoes in modern farming practices. Next come the beans. You plant them alongside the maize, knowing that they will climb the sturdy maize stalks as they grow, a symbiotic relationship that benefits both plants. The beans, a nitrogen-fixing legume, will enrich the very soil that the maize depletes, a natural cycle of give and take. You're not just a farmer. You're an ecosystem manager, a careful choreographer of plant life. A clumsy hand could plant the beans too close, strangling the young maize plants, or too far, leaving them without their natural trellis. You've seen it happen. Your neighbor once planted his beans a little too enthusiastically, and his maize crop came out looking like it was being hugged to death by a very needy vine. You work for hours. The gentle work, a stark contrast to the back-breaking labor of the previous days. This is the quiet part, the contemplative part. You feel the cool, damp mud on your fingers, the warmth of the sun on your back. You hum a low, tuneless melody, a song of gratitude and hope. This is your personal temple, and the act of planting is your prayer. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' reverence for maize, which they called our flesh, was a purely religious belief or a practical acknowledgement of the crop's central importance to their survival. The two, of course, were likely inseparable. You finish with the last of the chili seeds, a tiny, fiery promise of flavor to come, and step back, looking at your work. The chai nampa is now dotted with 100 tiny, almost invisible mounds of mud, each one holding potential for a feast for life. It looks no different from when you started, a flat, dark rectangle. But you know that beneath the surface, a miracle has begun. You take a long, deep breath, pulling the moist, rich air into your lungs. You feel a sense of profound peace, a quiet satisfaction that is different from the exhaustion of a few days ago. This isn't just a garden. It's your family's future, your contribution to the great city of Tenochtitlan, and a physical manifestation of your connection to the land and the gods who watch over it. The work, for now, is done. The waiting has begun. Your new Chai Nampa is now a small island of potential, but its life is inextricably tied to the body of water that surrounds it. You're a child of the lake, and you're learning to live with its rhythms, its moods, and its quirks. Lake Texcoco, which at its peak covered more than 2,000 square kilometers, isn't just a backdrop for your life. It's a character in your story. You paddle away from your newly planted garden, heading back towards the more established Chai Nampas of your village, and the subtle changes in the water are your compass. You can feel the slight difference in the current, the way the breeze pushes the reeds, the temperature of the water against your skin. You learn to read these signs like a book. The lake is actually a system of 5 interconnected lakes, all at slightly different elevations, some freshwater and some saline. Your part of the lake, where the city of Tenochtitlan and Chai Nampas are, is mostly brackish, a mix of fresh and salt water. This unique environment creates its own set of challenges and benefits. You have to be careful with the water you use for drinking and cooking, making sure to filter through layers of sand and charcoal back at home. But the brackish water is also incredibly rich in nutrients, feeding the algae and aquatic life that form the base of your entire ecosystem. A quirky fact: a major food source was a particular type of algae called tequillo, which the Aztecs harvested and dried into cakes. It was a nutrient-dense, protein-rich staple, and you can still find it in some parts of Mexico today, a testament to its ancient origins. As you paddle, you see other gardeners, their canoes filled with woven baskets of vegetables or with the tools of their trade. You offer a friendly nod or a shouted greeting. This shared life on the water creates a strong sense of community. Everyone understands the rhythm of the lake, the daily struggle and the daily rewards. You share stories of a good harvest or a tough day. This communal spirit is what holds a society together, a gentle, unspoken contract that says, we're all in this together on this big, beautiful, slightly salty lake. You even have a friendly, good-natured rivalry with your neighbor, who insists his squash are bigger because he sings to them. You, of course, know it's because you use a more balanced mix of dredged mud. Historians still argue whether the complex network of canals and causeways was primarily a means of transportation and defense, or if its primary purpose was agricultural, a giant system designed to support the Chinampa farms. The sounds of the lake are your constant companions. The quiet splish-splosh of your paddle, the cry of a heron fishing for its breakfast, the distant shouts of children playing on a causeway. In the evenings, you can hear the soft, rhythmic chanting of a priest at a nearby temple, a low murmur that drifts across the water like a lullaby. Living on the lake means you're never truly alone, but you're never overwhelmed by the noise of the city either. You're in a quiet, peaceful bubble, a little world unto itself, surrounded by the constant, life-giving presence of the water. You arrive at your family's chalupa, a small, floating home built from reeds and wood. You tie off your canoe and step inside, the familiar smell of wood smoke and dried herbs greeting you. You're tired, your arms aching from a day of paddling and labor, but it's a good kind of tired. It's the exhaustion that comes from purposeful work, from a day spent in harmony with the world around you. You look out the window at the shimmering water, the reflections of the city now dancing in the afternoon light. This is your home, your world, and you wouldn't trade it for anything. You've learned to live with the lake, and in return, the lake provides. The sun is a golden disk high in the sky, and you're navigating the familiar, watery streets between the Chinampas. Today's task is a little different, a break from the hard labor of building and planting. Today, you're a gatherer. Your destination is a dense thicket of reeds where the elegant water lily grows in abundance. These beautiful white flowers, with their broad, green pads, aren't just for decoration. To the people of the lake, they're a vital resource, a gift from the gods of the water. You steer your chalupa into the shady, quiet space between the floating gardens, where the water lilies are so thick they form a carpet of green and white. The air here is cooler, filled with the scent of damp earth and fresh water. This is a meditative kind of work, a gentle, focused foraging. With a long, hooked stick, you carefully pull a lily pad towards you. You're not interested in the flower itself, but in what lies beneath the surface. With a deft movement, you reach into the murky water and break off the long, fleshy stem. The base of the stem, the part that connects to the rhizome below, is a valuable source of food. It's crunchy and tastes faintly sweet, like a mix between a celery stalk and a jicama. You toss it into a woven basket in your canoe, and the gentle plop is the only sound you make. This is a skill you learn as a child, a knowledge passed down from your grandparents. They taught you how to identify the best stems to harvest, which ones are too old and tough, and which ones are too young to be worth the effort. They also taught you the importance of not over-harvesting, of leaving enough of the plant behind to ensure it will grow back. A quirky fact: while the stem was a food source, the roots of the water lily were sometimes ground into a paste to be used as a medicine for ailments like stomach pains, showing how every part of the plant had a purpose. It was also believed to have a calming effect on the nerves, a natural sedative that the gardeners of the lake probably didn't need very often. The rhythm of the gathering is soothing. Pull, break, toss. Pull, break, toss. You work for a couple of hours, and your basket slowly fills with the pale, fleshy stems. You feel a deep connection to the natural world around you. You're not just taking from the lake. You're a part of its ecosystem, a participant in the great cycle of life. You remember your father once telling a joke about a very clumsy man who, in his eagerness to harvest, fell headfirst into a patch of lilies. When he finally surfaced, he had a frog sitting on his head. Everyone still calls him Froghead. Behind his back, of course. The lily pads themselves, with their sturdy, waxy surfaces, also have their uses. They can be dried and used as a kind of natural packaging for delicate fruits or vegetables you take to market. They're a biodegradable, readily available resource. Historians still argue whether the widespread use of such readily available natural resources was a deliberate act of sustainable engineering or simply a pragmatic response to the lack of other materials. You, of course, don't think about it in those terms. It's just the way things are done. As you finish your harvest and paddle back, your basket full, you look out over the shimmering water. The water lilies are a beautiful sight, but to you, they're more than that. They are a sign of the lake's bounty, a tangible reminder that if you respect the natural world, it will, in turn, provide for you. You feel a sense of calm gratitude, a deep-seated peace that comes from a day spent in harmony with your environment. The gentle lapping of the water against your canoe is the only sound, a lullaby that sings you home. With your basket full of water lily stems, you push off from the quiet shallows and begin to navigate the intricate network of canals that crisscross the Chinampas. This is a simple paddle back home. It's a journey through a labyrinth, a maze of waterways that are the lifelines of the lake-based community. Each canal is a road, a highway of sorts, but instead of noisy carts and dusty foot traffic, there are only the silent, gliding chalupas and the gentle rustle of reeds. You feel like a captain on your own little ship, charting a course through a watery world that is both familiar and full of hidden turns. The canals are a marvel of engineering. They were carefully dug and maintained, a constant source of the nutrient-rich mud that built the gardens, as well as the essential arteries for trade and communication. Without them, the entire system would grind to a halt. Historians still argue whether the canals were primarily a feat of hydraulic engineering, or if their design was an organic, incremental process driven by the needs of the gardeners over generations. From your perspective, they're simply the way you get around. A quirky tidbit. The main causeways leading into Tenochtitlan had gaps with bridges that could be removed, a clever defensive strategy that could turn the city into an impenetrable fortress surrounded by water. You navigate the smaller, more personal canals, the ones that wind their way between your families and your neighbors' plots. You know the canals intimately. You know which turns are the fastest, which ones are often clogged with particularly thick patches of reeds, and which ones lead to the best fishing spots. You also know the unwritten rules of canal. You always yield to a loaded canoe, giving way to those carrying heavy baskets of produce or fresh mud. You offer a hand if someone's paddle gets stuck. It's a shared space, and a sense of mutual respect is paramount. You remember a funny story your grandfather told about a rival gardener who was so proud of his prize-winning pumpkins that he tried to paddle them to market on a flimsy raft. The raft promptly sank, and all you could see were his legs flailing in the water as a giant pumpkin floated past, a symbol of his hubris. As you paddle, you feel the gentle current pulling you along. The water, a slightly different temperature and clarity in each canal, tells you where you are, a kind of natural GPS. You can hear the distant murmur of voices, the rhythmic thump of a tortilla being patted into shape, the sound of a child's laughter. The canals are not silent. They are filled with the subtle, peaceful sounds of community at work and at play. You steer your chalupa around a bend, and a small, family-sized Chinampa comes into view. The owner, a kind old man with a face like a dried apple, nods and waves. You wave back. This network of canals is more than just a transportation system. It's the nervous system of your community, connecting everyone and everything, a constant reminder that you are part of a larger whole. You arrive at your family's landing, the small wooden dock where you moor your canoe. You carefully unload your basket of water lily stems, the day's work feeling light in your hands. The canals have brought you home, safely and peacefully. The journey itself was a part of the day's rhythm, a quiet, contemplative time that allowed your mind to wander and settle. You step onto the dock, the familiar creak of the wood under your feet a welcome sound. You look back at the shimmering, watery maze that you just navigated, a silent testament to the ingenuity and cooperation of your people. It's a beautiful, life-giving system, and you feel a profound sense of gratitude to be a part of it. The day is a continuous cycle, and with the foraging and navigating behind you, it's time to turn your attention to the most important task of all, the daily maintenance of your family's established Chinampa. This isn't the back-breaking labor of construction, but a quieter, more intimate kind of work. It's the daily ritual of a gardener, a soothing, repetitive cycle of tending, weeding, and watering. It's the kind of work that settles the mind and nourishes the soul. You paddle your chalupa to your family's oldest and most productive chinampa, the one your father and his father built. The plants here are a little taller now, their leaves a deep, vibrant green. You step onto the soft, dark soil, feeling the familiar give beneath your feet. The first task is to water, but you don't have a watering can. Instead, you use a large, shallow gourd. You lean over the edge of the chinampa, dip the gourd into the canal water, and then, with a gentle, arching motion, you sprinkle the water over the young plants. The water, rich with nutrients from the lake, is a natural fertilizer. You repeat this motion again and again, a slow, steady rhythm. The water glistening on the leaves like 1,000 tiny jewels. This is a meditative task, a physical connection between the life-giving water and the life-giving plants. Next, you weed. The rich soil of the chinampa is so fertile that weeds grow just as fast as the crops. You get down on your knees, your fingers moving with practiced efficiency, pulling out the unwanted intruders. You don't just toss them into the canal. However, you carefully collect them in a basket. These weeds, full of nutrients from the rich soil, will be added to the compost pile to be used later as a natural fertilizer. This is a closed-loop system, a sustainable cycle where nothing is wasted. A quirky fact: a type of amaranth, often considered a weed in other contexts, was actually cultivated by the Aztecs for its edible leaves and highly nutritious seeds. One man's weed is another man's dinner. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' deep understanding of these complex agricultural cycles was a form of deliberate ecological engineering or a natural development born from the limitations of their environment. You, of course, just see it as the way things have always been. You remember your father once telling you that if you pull a weed out of anger, it will grow back twice as fast. He was probably just trying to teach you to be calm, but it's a lesson that stuck with you. The work is quiet, focused, and almost hypnotic. The only sounds are the gentle rustle of leaves as you work and the distant buzz of a bee. You finish your tending just as the sun reaches its highest point in the sky. You stand up, stretching your back, and look out over the expanse of your family's chinampa. The rows of maize, beans, and squash are all in order. The soil is moist, and the weeds are gone. It's a small patch of land, but it feels like a universe. It's a universe that you, with your own two hands, have helped to create and sustain. The work is done for now, and a deep sense of calm and satisfaction washes over you. This daily ritual, this quiet dance between you and the earth and the water, is a profound and peaceful way to live. The exhaustion you feel is not a burden, but a testament to a day well spent, a life well lived. The sun is beginning its slow, lazy descent, and the soft, golden light is bathing the lake. This is the time of day when the hard, solitary work of the morning gives way to the communal spirit of the afternoon. You're not alone in this watery world. All around you, other gardeners, your neighbors and friends, are finishing their daily tasks. The air, once quiet and still, is now filled with the gentle sounds of community coming together. This is a time for shared labor, for cooperation, and for the kind of quiet camaraderie that can only exist between people who face the same challenges and share the same triumphs. Your family's oldest chinampa, the one that produces most of your food, is due for its regular soil replenishment. This is a task that's too big for one person. It requires dredging the canal beds and carrying the heavy, rich mud in baskets to spread over the garden. So, you paddle to your neighbor's chinampa, where he and his son are already at work. They greet you with a smile and a nod, and without a word you join them, grabbing a forked stick and a woven basket. This is the kind of unspoken understanding that defines your community. You don't have to ask for help. It's simply given, a natural part of the social contract. You work side by side, the three of you falling into a steady, rhythmic pattern. One of you dredges the mud from the canal, another carries it to the chinampa, and the third spreads it evenly over the surface. The work is still hard, but with three people, it's a shared burden and the exhaustion feels lighter. You laugh and joke, sharing stories about your day and the progress of your crops. This isn't just work. It's a social gathering, a moment to connect and strengthen the bonds of your village. A quirky tidbit. This system of communal labor was a formal part of Aztec society called tikio, where people were expected to contribute to public works and help their neighbors. It wasn't a chore. It was a fundamental part of community life. Historians still argue whether the Aztec social structure, with its emphasis on communal labor and shared resources, was a product of the unique challenges of building a city on a lake, or it was a deeply ingrained cultural value that predated their arrival in the valley. You don't need to know the answer to feel its truth. You feel in the tired but smiling faces of your neighbors, in the shared sweat and the shared sense of accomplishment. The work goes much faster with three sets of hands, and soon, the chinampa is covered in a fresh, dark layer of fertile mud, a new coat of life for the growing plants. As you finish the work, your neighbor offers you a small gourd of pulque, a fermented drink made from the agave plant. You take a long, cool drink, the slightly sour taste of welcome refreshment after the hard work. You sit on the edge of the chinampa, your feet dangling in the water, and just watch the sunset. The sky is a canvas of fiery oranges and deep purples, and the water reflects it all, a shimmering mirror of the day's end. The work is done. The community has come together, and a sense of profound peace settles over you. You know that tomorrow you will return the favor, helping another family with their own chinampa. This quiet, selfless cycle of giving and receiving is the beating heart of your world, a gentle rhythm that ensures everyone thrives. The sun is climbing higher now, and the air is getting warmer. The work of the morning is done, but the chinampa is not yet a silent place. The soft splashes and rustling of the reeds are now punctuated by a different kind of sound, the excited shouts and laughter of children. For you, the hard work of gardening is a daily reality, but for the younger generation, it is an education, a classroom that floats on water. Your little sister and your younger cousin are now paddling their own small chalupa, a miniature version of yours, out to the family chinampa. This is a rite of passage, the beginning of their journey as future gardeners. They're not just playing, they have a job to do. Their task is to act as the official pest patrol. With small, light paddles, they glide along the edge of the chinampa, making noise and waving their hands to shoo away the birds that would otherwise feast on the newly planted seeds. It's a job that requires focus and a good deal of playful energy. You watch as your sister, her face scrunched in concentration, imitates the squawking of a heron to chase one away. She looks over at you, a triumphant smile on her face, and you give her a nod of approval. This isn't just a game. It's a critical part of ensuring a good harvest. A quirky tidbit. To a child, this is a game of skill and strategy, but it is also teaching them to be observant, to understand the habits of the local wildlife, and to take responsibility for the health of their garden. The children also help with the weeding. They're not given the tough jobs of pulling out deep-rooted weeds, but they are taught to identify the small, young sprouts that need to be removed. They sit on the edge of the chinampa, their little feet dangling in the water, their small hands carefully plucking the tiny weeds. This is a lesson in patience and precision, a slow, gentle introduction to the rhythm of garden life. You remember when you were their age, learning the difference between a chili sprout and a weed, a mistake that earned you a good-natured scolding from your father. You can still hear his gentle laugh as he showed you the difference. Historians still argue whether the Aztec education system, with its emphasis on hands-on, practical skills for commoners and formal, structured learning for nobility, was a system designed to maintain social stratification or a pragmatic approach to preparing everyone for their roles in society. The children's presence brings a different kind of energy to the Chinampa. Their laughter is a joyful sound, a reminder that this life, though hard, is also full of joy and connection. They are learning to love the lake, to respect the plants, and to understand a profound connection between the hard work of their hands and the food on their table. They are learning, through play and through small, simple tasks, to become a part of the great cycle of life that sustains their family and their city. As you watch them, a deep sense of peace settles over you. You are not just a gardener. You are a teacher, a link in a long chain tradition that stretches back for generations. And in the quiet, peaceful moment of watching your sister shoo away a bird, you feel the profound continuity of your world. A world where the future is as green and full of life as the garden that floats before you. The quiet hum of the community fades as the children paddle back home, their small chalupa disappearing around a bend in the canal. You're left alone again, standing on the soft, dark soil of your family's Chinampa. But you're not really alone. You are surrounded by the subtle, unceasing pulse of the natural world, a world that is now preparing for a shift. The warmth of the morning sun is a gentle reminder that the long, hot, dry season is now in full swing, and you can feel the subtle tension in the air, a kind of collective holding of breath. The lake levels are dropping ever so slightly, and the soil, despite its proximity to the water, needs your careful attention. This is the rhythm of your life, a delicate dance between two great forces, the dry season and the wet season. You've lived through this cycle every year of your life, and you know how to read the signs. The air is thinner, the light is sharper, and the plants, though still green and vibrant, require a little more care. You spend the rest of the day on what your father calls water management, a sophisticated system of irrigation that doesn't involve any fancy machines or complex pipes. It's a simple, elegant solution born from 1,000 years of observation and practice. You use a shallow, woven reed basket to scoop water from a canal and gently pour it over the top of the Chinampa. The water then soaks down, nourishing the plants and replenishing the soil. This is a manual, physical process, a constant low-level effort that is a hallmark of dry season life. A quirky fact: while the dry season presents its challenges, it also has its benefits. The lower water levels expose more of the lake bed, making it easier to dredge the nutrient-rich mud for new Chinampas or to replenish old ones. It's a paradox of your world. The very thing that makes farming more difficult also provides the materials to make it better. The dry season is also the time for repairs. You spend hours weaving new reeds into the sides of your Chinampa to strengthen its walls against the eventual rush of the wet season, which you know will arrive with a fury in a few months. This is a time of preparation, of patient, quiet work that builds resilience. You also have to carefully choose your crops for this time of year. While the maize and squash are now in their growth phase, you've planted hardier, more drought-resistant plants like amaranth and certain varieties of beans that can withstand the hotter temperatures and drier conditions. This is a form of crop rotation, a sophisticated agricultural strategy that ensures you'll have food year-round. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' agricultural planning, which was often tied to their complex calendar and religious festivals, was a form of pragmatic farming or a series of rituals designed to appease the gods of the harvest. You, of course, just know it as the way of things. The gods are a part of your life, but so is the daily, hard-won knowledge of what a plant needs to survive. As the day turns into a long, golden afternoon, you find yourself in a state of profound calm. The work is steady, rhythmic, and demanding, but it doesn't feel like a struggle. It feels like a collaboration, a partnership with the sun, the soil, and the water. You remember a funny story your grandfather told about a man who tried to cheat the dry season by planting his crops too early. Thinking he'd get a head start, he ended up with a patch of sad, withered sprouts that looked like they had given up on life. He learned that you can't rush the seasons. You have to work with them. And so you do. You work with the sun, with the heat, with the very air. And in return, the land gives you a peace that is deeper than any you could find in the bustling markets of Tenochtitlan. It's the peace that comes from a life lived in harmony, a life lived in tune with the beautiful, unhurried rhythm of the seasonal cycle. The dry season, with its predictable heat and lower water levels, is a time of gentle work and steady maintenance. But you know this peace is a prelude to the most dangerous time of the year, the wet season. The rains will come, and when they do, they will come with fury that can transform the calm, serene lake into a churning, angry body of water. The greatest threat to your Chinampa is not a lack of water, but an overabundance of it. The floods. You've seen what a bad flood can do. A neighbor's Chinampa, once a proud garden, was completely submerged, its fragile walls washed away, and its crops lost in the murky depths. This is why you spend so much time in the dry season on preparation. Your family has a number of strategies to combat this threat, all born from centuries of trial and error. The first and most important is the constant monitoring of the lake's water levels. The Aztecs had a surprisingly sophisticated system of gauges and observation points throughout the lake. You, of course, rely on a simpler, more personal method. Your grandfather's old stick, a forked branch that he drove into the lake bed years ago. It has markings on it, each one a different height, and you check it every single day, a silent conversation with the water itself. A quirky fact: the Aztecs also built a massive dike, a 10-mile-long wall called the Alberdan de Nezahualcóyotl, to separate the fresh water from the brackish water and help control flooding, a marvel of ancient engineering that protected the heart of the city. You, on your small Chinampa, rely on your own, smaller-scale versions of that ingenuity. One of your most important tools is a system of simple channels and gates. You've carefully dug shallow trenches around the perimeter of your Chinampa that can be opened or closed with woven reed gates. When a heavy rain comes, you can open these gates, allowing the excess water to drain back into the canals. This is a delicate balancing act. Open the gates too much, and you'll lose valuable soil and nutrients. Don't open them enough, and your garden will drown. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' advanced knowledge of hydraulic control was an independent innovation, or if it was influenced by other Mesoamerican cultures. You don't care about the academic debate. You just know that a miscalculation on your part could mean the loss of your family's food supply. The preparation for the wet season is a time of quiet anxiety, but also profound peace. It's the peace that comes from knowing you've done everything you can. You've strengthened the walls of your Chinampa. You made sure your channels are clear, and you prepared the younger plants for the coming deluge. You've also taught the children what to look for: the sudden darkening of the sky, the unique scent of a coming storm. A funny story your father told you. During a particularly bad storm, your great-uncle, a man known for his dramatic flair, tried to protect his garden by yelling at the rain to stop. It didn't work, of course, and his Chinampa flooded just like everyone else's, but it gave the village a good laugh in a tense time. The wet season is a test, a moment of vulnerability in your life on the lake. But it is also a reminder of the power of the natural world and the resilience of your people. You know that even if a flood does come, you will rebuild. The mud is always there, the reeds are always growing, and the spirit of your community is strong. You stand on the edge of your Chinampa, a small island of resilience in a vast lake. You feel the first cool drops of rain. The dance between you and the water has begun again. The wet season is here, and with it comes a new set of challenges and a new set of rhythms. The heavy, warm air of the dry season has been replaced by a fresh, clean scent of rain-soaked earth. The lake, once a shimmering mirror, is now a swirling expanse of gray and white. The plants on your Chinampa, however, are thriving. The maize stalks are growing taller with each passing day. The beans are climbing their natural trellises, and the squash is producing large, beautiful flowers. But with this explosion of life comes the inevitable challenge. Pests. You're a careful and observant gardener, and you know that a successful harvest isn't just about the right soil and the right amount of water. It's also about the delicate balance of the ecosystem. You don't have access to the kinds of chemical pesticides that will be invented centuries from now. Your methods are simpler, more elegant, and more in tune with the natural world. Your first line of defense is a simple, effective one: observation. You spend part of your day walking slowly along the rows of plants, your eyes scanning the leaves for any signs of trouble. You look for the telltale chewing marks of an insect, the telltale slime trail of a snail, or the telltale burrow of a field mouse. Your hands, callous and strong, are your only tools. When you find a pest, you don't panic. You act with quiet deliberation. If you find a cluster of grubs on a leaf, you simply pluck the leaf off and toss it into the canal. The fish, a part of the same ecosystem, will take care of the rest. If you find a field mouse, a cunning little creature that loved to nibble on young maize shoots, you and your family have a simple solution: a small, hollowed-out gourd placed strategically near the edge of the chinampa. The mouse, looking for a dry place to hide from the rain, will scurry inside, and you can then, with a simple flick of your wrist, empty the gourd into the deep part of the canal, a humane end that reintroduces the mouse into the food chain. A quirky fact: a common pest was a type of beetle that would chew on maize leaves, and the Aztecs had a surprisingly effective solution. They would release a species of predatory insect, a natural form of pest control that modern farmers are only now rediscovering. The most difficult pests to manage are the birds. They are intelligent, cunning, and quick. This is where the children, as you recall, come in. But when they are not here, you have to find a way to make your chinampa less inviting. You've hung shiny, reflective pieces of obsidian from a few of the maize stalks. The obsidian, a volcanic glass, catches the light in flashes, a startling effect that startles the birds and sends them on their way. Historians still argue whether the Aztec sophisticated understanding of ecology was based on a spiritual reverence for nature or a purely practical, trial-and-error approach to farming. You, of course, just know that a little bit of shiny rock is a lot less work than replacing an entire crop. The work is quiet, focused, and meditative. It's a dance with the ecosystem, a subtle game of checks and balances. You are not trying to eliminate the pests. You're just trying to manage them, to keep their numbers in check so that your crops can thrive. You remember a funny story your father told you about a man who, in a fit of frustration, tried to scare away a flock of birds by waving a stick and shouting. He ended up losing his balance and falling into the canal, providing a great laugh for the rest of the village, and a perfect object lesson in the importance of staying calm and deliberate. The rain is still falling gently, a soothing backdrop to your work, and you feel a deep sense of peace, a quiet satisfaction that comes from a day spent in harmony with the beautiful, wild world around you. The rain has subsided, leaving the air fresh and cool. The sun, a bright and welcome sight, is now a benevolent presence in the sky. It's a perfect day, the kind of day that makes you feel alive and connected to everything around you. And this feeling of connection is not just to the earth and water, but to the divine. For you, a successful harvest is not just a result of hard work. It is a blessing, a gift from the gods. This is a time of day for gratitude, for giving back, and for showing respect to the spiritual forces that govern your world. You have a little ritual, a small, quiet act of devotion that you perform every day on the chinampa. You paddle your chalupa to the very center of your family's oldest garden. Here, nestled between two tall maize stalks, is a small, unadorned shrine. It's not a grand temple with a great altar. It's a simple, humble place, a small clearing in the garden with a flat stone at its center. This is your personal place of worship, a quiet corner of the world where you can communicate with the gods of the garden. You kneel on the soft, damp earth, the rich smell of the soil filling your nostrils. You take a few seed from a pouch at your waist, a handful of maize, a couple of beans, and a pinch of amaranth, and you place them on the stone. This is a small offering, a token of your gratitude. You speak a few words, a quiet prayer to Xylonin, the goddess of young maize, and Tlaloc, the god of rain and fertility. You ask for their continued blessing, for their protection from pests and floods, and for a bountiful harvest. You don't ask for wealth or power. You ask for the simple, fundamental things that sustain your life and your family. A quirky fact: while Tlaloc was an ancient god with a fierce and powerful reputation in the context of the Chinampa Gardens, he was also a gentle, life-giving force, a complex deity that represented both the destructive power of floods and the nourishing power of rain. This dual nature was a reflection of the Aztecs' own relationship with the lake itself. Your father once told you a funny story about a man who, in a desperate attempt to get a better harvest, tried to offer his most prized possession to the gods, a particularly beautiful woven blanket. He left it on his altar, but a mischievous monkey, a creature of the forest, stole it and ran away. The man took this as a sign from the gods that they preferred the simple, honest offering of seeds and hard work. He never made a grand gesture again. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' pantheon of gods, with their vast and intricate relationships, was a way to explain the unpredictable forces of nature or a deliberate system of social control, with each god representing a different aspect of daily life and labor. You, of course, just know that your small, humble offering is an act of faith, a way of feeling connected to the great, invisible forces that make the world go round. You sit for a few minutes in silent contemplation, listening to the quiet rustle of the leaves and the distant chirping of a bird. You feel a deep sense of peace and calm, a profound connection to the land, the water, and the divine. The offering is a reminder that you are not just a worker, but a partner in a great cosmic dance. You are a part of a tradition that stretches back to the beginning of time itself. You stand, dust off your knees, and paddle back to the village, your heart full of gratitude and a quiet, certain peace. The sun, now a warm and comforting presence in the sky, is a reminder of the quiet blessings of the day. But for all your personal rituals and quiet prayers, the gods of your world are a powerful and sometimes mysterious force, and there was often interpreted through a higher authority, the priests. While you spend your days with your hands in the mud, their lives are spent with their heads in the stars, observing the movements of the planets and the omens that float on the wind. Your interaction with them is rare, but important, and today is one of those days. You paddle your chalupa toward a nearby causeway where a small, modest temple dedicated to the earth gods is located. You feel a familiar, respectful apprehension. These are not men of the soil, but men of the spirit, and their world feels a million miles away from yours. As you approach, you see a young priest standing on the temple steps, his face a picture of serene concentration. He's not watching the sky, he's watching the Chinampas. He's observing the health of the plants, the clarity of the water, and the overall vitality of the ecosystem. He's looking for omens, for signs from the gods that the harvest will be a good one. You tie off your canoe and climb the stone steps, a woven basket of the best young maize ears from your harvest in your hands. This is your offering, a token of your gratitude and a symbol of your faith. The priest greets you with a quiet nod, his eyes deep and calm. You don't speak, but you hold up the basket for him to inspect. He carefully examines the maize, his fingers running over the kernels, his eyes taking in the vibrant yellow and the healthy sheen. He smiles a small, knowing expression that tells you he is pleased. A quirky fact: a good harvest of maize was not just a sign of a prosperous year, but was also believed to be a sign of cosmic harmony, a signal that the gods were pleased with the actions of the people. This connection between the physical world and the divine was central to the Aztec worldview. The priest then takes a small pouch from his robe, a pouch filled with a finely ground, white powder. This is copal, a sacred incense. He takes a pinch of it and blows it gently over the maize in your basket, a silent blessing. The copal, with its clean, woody scent, is a link between the mundane world of farming and the transcendent world of the gods. He then says a few words, a quiet, flowing prayer that you can't quite hear, but you can feel its weight and its meaning. It's a prayer for a continued bountiful harvest, for a peaceful season, and for the health of your family. You feel a deep sense of peace and gratitude, a feeling that your work has been seen, acknowledged, and blessed by the divine. Historians still argue whether the Aztec priesthood's role was primarily spiritual, serving as a conduit between the people and the gods, or if it was a powerful political class that used its authority to control and manage the population. You, of course, just know that in this quiet moment on the temple steps, the priest is simply a good man, a spiritual shepherd of your people, and a vital part of the gentle, unhurried rhythm of your world. You turn to leave, your basket now feeling a little lighter, your heart a little fuller. You remember a funny story your father told about a very arrogant priest who once tried to bless a harvest that was already ruined. He ended up getting a face full of rotten squash for his trouble, a lesson that even the gods have a sense of humor. You paddle away from the temple, the gentle lapping of the water a peaceful backdrop to the quiet satisfaction that fills your heart. The morning sun is a gentle, golden glow on the horizon, and the air is crisp and cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and fresh water. It's not a day for planting or weeding. It's a day for trade. Today is market day, a bustling, chaotic, and vital part of your world. You have spent the last few days carefully preparing for this, harvesting the best of your crops and sorting them into neat, beautiful piles. Your chalupa is now loaded with baskets filled with plump maize ears, vibrant green squash, and chili peppers that glow with a fiery promise. This is a culmination of weeks of hard work, the moment where your quiet, solitary life on the Chinampa connects with the great, beating heart of the city. The journey to the market, a place called Tlatelolco, is a journey from the peaceful countryside to the center of the world. You push off from your family's dock, the gentle splash of your paddle a familiar sound. The canals are no longer quiet. They are now filled with a steady stream of other gardeners, all paddling their own loaded canoes toward the city. It's a watery parade of life and labor, a testament to the power of the Chinampa system. You greet your neighbors with a nod and a wave, sharing a quiet sense of camaraderie. You are all in this together, a great, moving river of sustenance flowing into the city. The journey is a long one, and you settle into the steady rhythm of paddling. Your mind, once focused on the delicate details of your garden, is now free to wander. You think about the market, about the people you will see, the goods you will trade for. This is a chance to not just sell your produce, but to hear news from the city, to see new faces, and to feel the pulse of the empire. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' highly organized market system, with its professional merchants and specialized traders, was a sign of a burgeoning capitalist economy or a state-controlled system of resource distribution. You, of course, just know it as the place where you can get a new woven basket for your wife or a toy for your children. A quirky fact: while you're paddling on the water, many people are walking on the causeways, which were built up of a mixture of volcanic stone, mud, and plants. These causeways were the main arteries of the city, and they were often so crowded with people and goods that they were a sight to behold. You, on the water, have a more peaceful, but no less vital, journey. You remember a funny story your father told about a very boastful merchant who, in a rush to get to market, overloaded his canoe with so much pottery that it sank right in the middle of the main canal. The rest of the traders had a good laugh, but they all helped him pull his pottery from the muddy bottom. As you get closer to the city, the canals get wider, the traffic gets thicker, and the sounds get louder. The distant hum of the city, once a soft murmur, is now a vibrant, cacophonous symphony of voices, laughter, and commerce. The journey is almost over, and you feel a rush of excitement and anticipation. The quiet, peaceful life of the Chinampa is about to give way to the bustling energy of the market, a necessary and welcome change of pace. You paddle with a renewed sense of purpose, your canoe a small, vital vessel carrying the fruits of your labor into the heart of the empire. You glide your chalupa through a final, crowded canal and emerge into the main embarcadero, the great watery harbor of the market of Tlatelolco. The change is immediate and overwhelming. The quiet peace of canals is gone, replaced by a roaring, vibrant symphony of commerce. This isn't just a market. It's a city within a city, a bustling, sensory explosion that assaults every part of you in the best possible way. The sheer scale of it is staggering. Hundreds of thousands of people, from all corners of the empire, are here, trading everything from food to feathers, from obsidian to slaves. You feel a thrill of excitement, a small jolt of energy that is a stark contrast to the quiet calm of your daily life. The first thing that hits you is the sound. It's a low, constant roar, 1,000 conversations blending into one. You can hear the shouts of vendors, the haggling of merchants, the excited chatter of children, and the distant, rhythmic drumming of a group of entertainers. It's a cacophony, but a beautiful one, the sound of a thriving, vibrant society. Then comes the smell. The air is thick with 1,000 different scents. The rich, earthy smell of maize and beans, the sharp, pungent aroma of chiles, the sweet, cloying scent of fresh fruits, and the clean, woody smell of copal incense burning at a nearby shrine. A quirky fact: the market was so massive and so well organized that it was said to be cleaner and more orderly than any market in Europe at the time, a testament to the Aztec sophisticated sense of civic order. You carefully tie your chalupa to one of the hundreds of docks, trying not to get in the way of the other traders. You unload your baskets of produce, their colors a vibrant splash against the gray stone of the causeway. You feel a familiar, quiet pride as you set out your wares. These are not just vegetables. They are the fruits of your labor, the physical embodiment of your peaceful life on the Chinampa. You find a small spot in the produce section, a part of the market dedicated solely to food. Here, the competition is fierce, but the camaraderie is also strong. You greet a fellow gardener from your village, a man with a booming laugh and a prize-winning crop of tomatoes. He winks at you, a silent acknowledgement of the friendly rivalry that exists between you. Historians still argue whether the Aztec government's strict regulation of the market, with its professional judges and inspectors, was a benevolent attempt to ensure fair trade for everyone or a powerful tool of state control that stifled economic innovation. You, of course, just know that you can trust the scales and the prices, a reassuring feeling in the midst of all this chaos. You set out your produce, and potential buyer, a merchant woman with a sharp eye and a shrewd mind, approaches your stall. She examines your maize, her fingers running over the kernels, her eyes assessing their quality. You feel a moment of quiet pride. This is the moment of truth, the moment where your hard work is judged. You have no doubt it will pass the test. A funny story your father once told you. A man new to the market was so overwhelmed by the noise and the crowds that he mistook a pile of dried fish for a new kind of jerky. He tried to trade his entire crop of squash for it, much to the amusement of the rest of the market. He learned his lesson about paying attention. You, on the other hand, are calm and focused, a small island of peaceful concentration in the midst of a swirling sea of humanity. You are a part of the market, but you are also separate from it, a gardener at heart, a man of the lake, a silent witness to the magnificent chaos of the city. You've made your first sale of the day. The merchant woman with the sharp eye and shrewd mind, after a brief, good-natured period of haggling, has agreed to a price for a large portion of your maize and squash. The transaction is a simple one, but it is the lifeblood of the market and the foundation of your world. She doesn't pay you with metal coins or paper notes. She pays you with cacao beans. You watch as she carefully counts out a small pile of the dark, oblong beans and places them in your hand. They feel smooth and cool against your skin, a tiny, valuable treasure. This is the currency of the Aztec Empire, a natural and beautiful form of exchange that you have been using your entire life. Each bean has a specific value, a universally understood worth. This simplicity is a source of immense peace. You don't have to worry about counterfeiting or the shifting value of a piece of metal. A cacao bean is a cacao bean, and its value is its value. A quirky fact: while cacao beans were the most common form of currency, other items were also used, such as woven cotton cloths and even quills filled with gold dust. But the cacao bean was a great equalizer, the money of the common man. It was also, of course, a delicious treat, and a small portion of your wealth would probably end up as a frothy, spicy, and deeply satisfying drink. You carefully pour the beans into a small, woven pouch at your waist, the gentle rattle of quiet, reassuring sound. This is not just a transaction. It's a moment of connection, a silent agreement that you have provided a good product and that you have been fairly compensated. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' reliance on a natural, perishable form of currency like cacao bean limited their economic growth, or whether it was a deliberate choice that created a more stable and equitable society. You, of course, just know that you can use these beans to buy what your family needs. You can get a new woven basket, a clay pot for cooking, or even a brightly colored cotton tunic for your wife. You remember a funny story your grandfather told about a man who, in a desperate attempt to get rich quick, tried to counterfeit cacao beans by painting pebbles brown. He was quickly caught, of course, and the market judges, in their infinite wisdom, decided his punishment was to eat his counterfeit beans. He ended up with a mouthful of dirt and a great deal of shame, a lesson in the importance of honesty and integrity that everyone in the market still remembers. You, on the other hand, are an honest man, a man who has earned his wealth through the quiet, hard work of his hands. The cacao beans in your pouch are a symbol of that work, a tangible representation of the value you have created. They are not just money. They are the fruits of your labor, the promise of a meal, the security of a roof over your head. As you continue to trade, you feel a deep sense of peace, a quiet satisfaction that comes from a day spent in honest commerce, a day spent in harmony with the great, beating heart of the city. You are a small but vital part of a magnificent system, and you feel the weight and the beauty of that connection. The sun is beginning its final, beautiful descent, painting the sky in fiery streaks of orange and purple. The market, once a roaring symphony of sound and motion, is now settling into a quieter, more subdued rhythm. Most of the traders have packed up their wares and are beginning their journey back home, their canoes now a little lighter, their cacao pouches a little heavier. You've sold the last of your produce, bought a few small things for your family, and are now paddling your chalupa back towards your chinampa. The journey home is different from the journey to the market. It is a time for quiet reflection, for processing the day's events, for settling your mind before you settle into sleep. The canals, once crowded with a parade of canoes, are now almost empty. The water, once churned into a choppy surface by 100 paddles, is now calm and still, reflecting the beautiful colors of the dying day. You glide along, the only sound the gentle splish-splosh of your paddle and the soft rustle of the reeds. This is your favorite time of day, this peaceful transition from the energy of the city to the quiet tranquility of the lake. Your mind wanders back over the day. You think about the haggle with the merchant woman, the feel of the cacao beans in your hand, the laughter you shared with your neighbor. It all feels a little like a dream now, a vivid and exciting memory that is already fading into the quiet reality of your life. A quirky fact: while the market was a central part of Aztec life, most commoners spend the vast majority of their time in their villages and on their chinampas, with market days serving as a necessary and important break in a life of sustained, gentle labor. This balance between community and solitude, between commerce and creation, was a hallmark of the Aztecs' peaceful daily existence. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' social structure, with its clear separation between city life and rural life, was a deliberate form of social control or a natural consequence of their unique geography. You, of course, just feel it as profound and welcome rhythm in your life. As you get closer to your family's chinampa, you can see the faint glow of a cooking fire, and a familiar scent of wood smoke drifts across the water. You feel a jolt of warmth and a profound sense of peace. You are almost home. You remember a funny story your father told about a man who, after a long day at the market, was so exhausted that he fell asleep in his canoe and drifted into a thick patch of reeds. He woke up the next morning, completely disoriented, to the sound of a heron squawking in his face. He learned his lesson about staying alert. You, on the other hand, are wide awake, your mind clear and calm, your body tired but at peace. You arrive at your family's dock, the familiar creak of the wood under your feet a welcome sound. You tie off your canoe, your day's work now truly done. You stand for a moment, looking out over the shimmering water, the faint lights of the city twinkling in the distance like a field of fireflies. The sun is now gone, and the first stars are beginning to appear. The air is cool and soft, and a gentle breeze rustles the leaves of the maize. This is the peace that you've earned, the quiet satisfaction that comes from a day of honest labor and a life of profound purpose. You feel a deep sense of gratitude, a quiet, certain knowledge that your world, for all its challenges, is a good and peaceful one. The cooking fire is a warm, inviting presence in the deepening twilight. The smell of maize cooking on the fire and the low murmur of your family's voices are a welcome sound. But before you can fully settle into the evening, there is one last, important task to perform: the washing of your feet and hands. You walk to the edge of the dock, where a large clay pot of clean, cool water sits waiting. The water is a contrast to the murky, brackish water of the lake, a small luxury that you cherish. This is a moment of transition, a quiet ritual that separates the day of labor from the evening of rest. You dip your hands into the water, feeling the cool liquid wash away the mud and the sweat of the day. You then dip your feet, feeling the grime of the canals and the market wash away. As you do, you feel a profound sense of release. The day's labor, its challenges and its triumphs, are now behind you. The aches in your muscles are not a burden, but a testament to a day well spent. This is a moment of profound peace, a quiet acknowledgement that rest is as vital as work. A quirky fact: the Aztecs believed in a concept of balance, or in Tlili and Tlapali, the black and the red, which refer to balance of wisdom and knowledge. This extended to all aspects of life, including the balance between hard work and rest. You settle into your family's small, floating home, feeling the gentle rocking of the chalupa against the water. You sit down by the fire, your wife handing you a small bowl of cooked maize and beans. The food is simple, but it tastes magnificent, a direct result of the quiet, patient work of your hands. You eat slowly, savoring each mouthful. You are not just eating food. You are eating the fruits of your labor, the physical embodiment of your connection to the land and the water. This is a moment of profound gratitude, a quiet recognition that you are well and truly provided for. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' daily life, with its constant cycle of labor and its emphasis on communal well-being, was a source of stress and exhaustion, or a source of profound peace and contentment. You, of course, just know that you are tired, but you are not stressed. Your mind is quiet, your heart is full, and your body, though weary, is strong. You remember a funny story your grandfather told about a man who, in a desperate attempt to avoid work, tried to pretend he was sick. He ended up getting so bored that he started weeding his garden just to have something to do. He learned that the quiet rhythm of labor was a better cure for boredom than any medicine. As the evening wears on, you can hear the soft, rhythmic chanting of a priest at a distant temple, a sound that drifts across the water like a lullaby. The fire, now a low, gentle glow, casts long, dancing shadows on the walls of your home. You feel a deep sense of peace, a quiet satisfaction that comes from a life lived in harmony, a life lived in balance. You are not just a gardener. You are a partner in a great cosmic dance, a dance between work and rest, between the city and the lake, between the physical and the spiritual. And as you drift off to sleep, the gentle rocking of the water is a soothing lullaby, a peaceful end to a long, good day. The evening air is cool and soft, carrying the scent of wood smoke and the distant, earthy aroma of the lake. The fire is a low, gentle glow in the center of your family's home, and the sound of the day have faded into a peaceful hum. This is the time for the most important ritual of all, the nightly meal. You sit on a woven reed mat with your wife and children, and she serves the food from the clay pot that has been simmering over the fire all day. The meal is simple, but it is a feast. There is tortilla, made from the maize you harvested last season, and a thick, savory stew of beans and squash, all from your own chinampa. You eat with your hands, savoring each mouthful. This is not just dinner. It is the physical culmination of your life. Every bite is a taste of your hard work, of your connection to the land, of your gratitude to the gods. The maize, which you planted with your own hands, is now a warm, satisfying tortilla in your stomach. The beans and squash, which you tended and weeded with care, are now a nourishing, life-giving stew. You feel a profound sense of peace, a quiet satisfaction that comes from a life where the distance between your labor and your sustenance is so short and so clear. A quirky fact: a common addition to the meal was a small, fiery chili pepper, which was believed to not only add flavor, but also to have medicinal properties and to aid in digestion. It was a perfect, natural complement to the simple meal. Your children, their faces lit by the firelight, eat with a quiet contentment that is a reflection of your own. They have helped with the harvest. They have shooed away the birds, and they have watched you work every day. They understand, in a way that is both intuitive and profound, that this food is not a given. It is a gift earned through patience and hard work. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' diet, which was largely vegetarian and centered on maize and beans, was a matter of cultural preference or a pragmatic response to the unique challenges of farming on a lake. You, of course, just know that it is a delicious and satisfying meal, a perfect end to a long day. As you finish eating, you lean back, your stomach full and your heart full of gratitude. The fire is now just a bed of glowing embers, and the darkness outside is complete. The only sounds are the gentle lapping of the water against the chalupa and the quiet breathing of your family. You remember a funny story your grandfather told about a man who, in a rush to get to a feast, forgot to cook his beans. He ended up with a mouthful of hard, uncooked legumes, a lesson in the importance of patience that the rest of the village never let him forget. You, on the other hand, have been patient. You have waited for the seasons to turn, for plants to grow, and for the harvest to come. And now, you are reaping the rewards, not just in the food in your stomach, but in the profound and peaceful satisfaction that fills your heart. The embers of the fire are now a soft, pulsing orange, and the conversation has grown quiet. Your children are beginning to drift off to sleep, their small bodies nestled in the soft blankets you wove yourself. But before the night is completely over, there is one last, important act of the day: the passing on of knowledge. Your older child, a girl of 10 with your wife's sharp eyes, is still awake, her mind full of questions about the day's work. She is the future, and it is your job to prepare her for the life that is to come. You are not just a gardener. You are a teacher, a living link in a chain of tradition that stretches back for generations. You speak to her in a low, gentle voice, a bedtime story that is also a lesson. You talk about the importance of knowing the rhythms of the lake, of being able to read the subtle changes in the water. You remind her of the difference between the maze weevil and the maze moth, two pests that look similar but require different methods of control. You tell her the story of your grandfather and his stick and the importance of monitoring the water levels. You remind her that a gardener's greatest tool is not their hands, but their mind and their knowledge. A quirky fact: while boys were often taught the more physical skills of farming and building, girls were taught a different but equally vital set of skills, including weaving, cooking, and the medicinal properties of various plants, all of which were essential for the survival and well-being of the family. You talk about the spirit of the Chinampa, about the profound connection between the hard work of your hands and the life that springs forth from the soil. You tell her that the Chinampa is not just a farm. It is a living thing, a gift from the gods that must be respected and nurtured. You tell her that every seed you plant is a prayer, every harvest a blessing. You remind her of the story of the man who tried to cheat the dry season and the importance of patience. This is not just information. It is a philosophy, a way of life that you are passing on to the next generation. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' oral tradition, with its rich tapestry of stories, myths, and lessons, was a deliberate way to preserve knowledge in the absence of a widespread writing system or a natural consequence of a culture that valued community and shared experiences. As you speak, you can see the sleepiness in her eyes, but you can also see the light of understanding, a quiet recognition of the wisdom you are imparting. She is learning not just what to do, but why to do it. She is learning the rhythm of your world, the gentle, unhurried cadence of life lived in harmony with the seasons. You remember a funny story your father told about a very young boy who, in his eagerness to learn, tried to tell a priest how to read the stars. He ended up getting a good-natured scolding, a lesson in the importance of humility that he never forgot. You, on the other hand, are teaching your daughter with humility, with gentleness, and with a deep love that is as old as the lake itself. She is now asleep, her breathing soft and even. You sit for a few more minutes, listening to the gentle lapping of the water, the low hum of the village, and the soft breathing of your family. You feel a deep sense of peace, a quiet satisfaction that comes from knowing you have done your part. You have worked, you have provided, and you have passed on the knowledge that will ensure the continuation of your way of life. The fire is now just a few glowing embers, and the darkness outside is complete. The stars, which the priests study with such devotion, are now a silent, beautiful blanket over the world, a peaceful end to a long, good day. The last embers of the fire have died, and the night is now a deep velvety black. The only light comes from the silent, beautiful stars and the soft, white glow of the moon reflecting off the still surface of the lake. Your family is asleep, their breathing soft and even. You are now truly alone, but you don't feel lonely. You feel a deep and profound connection to the world around you, a spiritual bond that is as old as the lake itself. This is the moment for quiet contemplation, for feeling the pulse of the earth, the water, and the divine. You step out of your family's home and onto the small dock. The cool night air a welcome sensation on your skin. You sit on the edge, your feet dangling just above the water. You close your eyes and just listen. You can hear the distant cry of a nocturnal bird, the gentle splash of a fish jumping for a moth, and the soft, rhythmic lapping of the water against the reeds. It's a symphony of natural sounds, a peaceful, hypnotic chorus that lulls you into a state of profound calm. This isn't just a physical place. It's a spiritual one. You feel the deep, interconnected web of life that sustains you and your family. The water provides a fish, which fertilizes the soil, which feeds the plants, which feed you. You are not a master of this world. You are a part of it, a gentle collaborator in a great cosmic dance. A quirky fact: the Aztecs believed in a spiritual force called tonality, a kind of vital energy that resided in the head and was connected to the sun. This force was believed to be shared by all living things, a spiritual bond that connected a gardener to their crops, their family, and their gods. You think about the gods of your world, not as distant, powerful beings, but as the very essence of things around you. Tlaloc, the god of rain, is not just a deity. He is the gentle rain that falls on your face, the water that nourishes your crops, and the life that teems in the lake. Xilonen, the goddess of young maize, is not just a statue in a temple. She is a vibrant green stalk that grows on your chinampa, the delicious tortilla that fills your stomach, and the promise of future harvests. This is a quiet, personal spirituality, a religion of the senses and of the earth. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' pantheistic beliefs, where gods were seen as manifestations of nature, was a sophisticated philosophical system or a natural consequence of society so deeply intertwined with its environment. You, of course, just know that you can feel the gods in the mud between your toes, in the sun on your face, and in the food that nourishes your family. You sit for a long time, just breathing in the night air, feeling the gentle rocking of the chalupa in the distance. You feel a deep sense of peace, a quiet satisfaction that comes from a life lived in harmony with the natural and the divine. You are a gardener, yes, but you're also a spiritual being, a small but vital part of a magnificent, interconnected world. You remember a funny story your father told about a man who, in a desperate attempt to feel more spiritual, tried to meditate on a tiny, wobbly piece of wood. He ended up falling into the canal, providing a great laugh for the village and a perfect lesson in the importance of finding your own spiritual footing. You, on the other hand, are on solid ground, or at least on a solid dock. The stars, which the priests study with such devotion, are now a silent, beautiful blanket over the world, a peaceful end to a long, good day. The night is now a blanket of a deep, inky blue, and the stars are so bright and numerous they seem to hum with a silent energy. The moon, a crescent of pure white light, casts a soft, gentle glow over the lake. Your family is still asleep, but you're now nestled inside your home, sitting on a woven mat by the window. This is a time for the passing of a different kind of knowledge, not of farming or gods, but of history, of memory. Your grandfather, a man whose face is a roadmap of a long and peaceful life, is sitting across from you. This is his ritual, the telling of stories by starlight, a quiet, peaceful communion with the past. He speaks in a low, gentle voice, a voice that is as old and as calm as the lake itself. He tells stories of the Great Migration, of how your ancestors, guided by the god Huitzilopochtli, searched for a new home, a place where an eagle would be perched on nopal cactus, devouring a snake. He tells the story of how they found this omen in the middle of a great lake and, with a kind of stubborn, quiet determination, began to build their city from the mud and the reeds. He tells you that your life, this peaceful life of gardening and community, is not an accident. It is a fulfillment of an ancient prophecy, a promise from the gods. A quirky fact. While the Aztecs' founding myth is widely known, a lesser-known tidbit is that the eagle on a cactus omen was also believed to be a sign of a place with an abundance of food and resources, a practical omen that was as important as its spiritual meaning. He then tells you stories of your family, of your great-grandfather who was a master weaver of reed baskets, of your great-grandmother who was a famous cook, and of the many challenges and triumphs they faced. He reminds you that you are not just a single person living on a chinampa. You are a part of a long, beautiful chain of life that stretches back to the very beginning of time. Your quiet, peaceful life is a legacy, a testament to the hard work and resilience of those who came before you. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' emphasis on oral history and storytelling, with its mix of myth and fact, was a deliberate way to create a strong sense of national identity or a way to preserve collective memory in a culture that did not have a widespread writing system. You, of course, just know that these stories are a part of you, a warm and comforting presence in the cool night air. He finishes his story, his voice trailing off into a peaceful silence. You sit for a moment, just breathing, feeling the weight and the beauty of his words. You remember a funny story he told you about a man who, in his eagerness to impress a girl, made up a tall tale about his great-grandfather fighting a mythical beast. He was found out, of course, when the girl's grandfather, a quiet old man, told the true story of the great-grandfather's life, a story that was far more impressive and beautiful than the one he made up. He learned that the truth, no matter how simple, is always the most powerful story. You, on the other hand, are now filled with a quiet, certain knowledge of your own history, your own story. The stars which the priests study with such devotion are now a silent, beautiful blanket over the world, a peaceful end to a long, good day. The moon is now a high, quiet presence, and the air has grown cool and still. The stories are over, and the gentle rhythm of your grandfather's voice has lulled you into a peaceful, contemplative state. But even in the quiet of the night, your mind, as a gardener's mind always does, turns to the future. You think about the seasonal cycle, the great dance between the wet and the dry, and you realize that while floods are a constant threat, their opposite, drought, is a quiet, creeping danger that can be just as deadly. You've been blessed with a good wet season so far, but you know that a long, hot, dry season can come at any time, a period of unrelenting sun and little rain. This is the gardener's greatest fear. A flood is a dramatic, quick event, a moment of chaos that you can, in some ways, prepare for. A drought, however, is a slow, agonizing death. The lake levels drop, the canals become stagnant, and the soil, despite its proximity to the water, begins to crack and turn to dust. The young maize stalks, which once stood so proud and green, begin to droop and yellow, their leaves curling in a desperate attempt to conserve moisture. You've seen it happen. A quirky fact: a long drought was often accompanied by an increase in a particular type of bird that would feast on the weakened crops, a double blow that could completely wipe out a village's harvest. Your family and your community have a number of strategies to combat this silent killer, all born from 1,000 years of hard-won knowledge. The first and most important is the preservation of water. You have a system of large, woven reed baskets lined with clay that you use to collect and store rainwater during the wet season. This water, a precious commodity, is saved for the driest days, a kind of insurance policy against the unpredictable whims of the weather. You also have a system of simple gates and dams in your canals that you can close, a way to keep the water from flowing away and to create a small, localized reservoir. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' highly sophisticated system of water management, with its dikes, canals, and reservoirs, was a sign of society on the verge of an industrial revolution or a desperate attempt to control an environment that was constantly on the verge of collapse. You remember a funny story your grandfather told about a man who, in a desperate attempt to get his crops through a drought, tried to steal water from a neighbor's canal. He was caught, of course, in the village, in its infinite wisdom, made him carry a large pot of water on his head back and forth, from a main canal to his home for an entire week, a public shaming that taught him a powerful lesson in community and cooperation. You, on the other hand, know that in a drought, you and your neighbors must work together, sharing what little water you have, a silent, unspoken promise that you will all get through this together. You sit in the quiet of the night, feeling the cool air on your skin and listening to the soft, rhythmic hum of the insects. The thought of a drought is a sober one, but it is not a fearful one. It is a part of the rhythm of your world, a challenge that you and your people have faced for generations. You are a gardener, yes, but you're also a survivor, a quiet, resilient partner in a great cosmic dance. The stars, which the priests study with such devotion, are now a silent, beautiful blanket over the world, a peaceful end to a long, good day. The night is quiet and still, but the world around you is anything but. Even in the darkness, the Chinampa ecosystem is alive, a complex and intricate web of flora and fauna that is a constant source of wonder. You lie on your woven mat, the gentle rocking of the chalupa, a peaceful rhythm. and you listen to the sounds of night. You can hear the distant, repetitive croaking of frogs, a kind of natural metronome for the darkness. You can hear the soft rustle of a snake as it glides through the reeds, a silent hunter in a silent world. You can hear the gentle buzzing of 1,000 insects, a low hum of life that is never truly quiet. This is a hidden world of the Chinampa, a world that is just as important as the maize and the beans you grow. The frogs and snakes are not just a part of the landscape. They are a vital part of your pest control system, a natural defense against the insects and rodents that would otherwise destroy your crops. The fish, which you sometimes catch with a simple net, are not just food. Their waste fertilizes the very mud that builds your garden. A quirky fact: the axolotl, a unique salamander-like creature that lives in the lake, was not just an important food source, but was also considered a sacred animal, a living embodiment of the god Zolotl, a deity of fire and lightning. The plants, too, are a world unto themselves. You are familiar with the maize and the beans, but you also live amongst a fascinating array of other flora. There are the reeds and rushes that you use to build your Chinampa and your home. There are the beautiful water lilies, which you harvest with their edible stems. And there are the many different types of medicinal plants that grow wild on the edges of the canals, plants that your wife and the other women of the village use to make poultices and teas. This is a living pharmacy, a natural apothecary that provides for all of your family's needs. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' vast botanical knowledge, with its thousands of identified plants and their specific uses, was a form of deliberate scientific inquiry or an intuitive, passed down understanding of the natural world that was inseparable from their spiritual beliefs. You remember a funny story your grandfather told about a man who, in his eagerness to try a new medicinal plant, accidentally brewed a tea from particularly bitter weed. He ended up with a face so sour it looked like he had eaten 100 lemons, a lesson in the importance of knowing your plants that the rest of the village never let him forget. You, on the other hand, are a student of your environment, a quiet observer of the life that teems all around you. You are a part of this ecosystem, a gentle collaborator in a great cosmic dance. The moon, a crescent of pure white light, casts a soft, gentle glow over the lake, a peaceful end to a long, good day. The night is now a symphony of sound, a gentle, rhythmic hum that is both peaceful and alive. The frogs continue their steady croaking, the insects their low buzz, and the distant call of a heron echoes across the water. But there is another kind of music that you hear, a more subtle and personal melody. It is the music of the canals, a gentle, hypnotic song that is the soundtrack to your life. The sound of the water lapping against the reeds is a soft, percussive beat. The gentle, rhythmic slosh of your canoe as it nudges against the dock is a low, comforting bass note, and the distant, soft murmur of the wind as it whispers through the tall maize stalks is a high, ethereal melody. This is the music of your world, a natural and beautiful symphony that you have been hearing since the day you were born. It is a music that is never the same, yet always the same. It changes with the seasons, with the time of day, and with the moods of the lake. It is a music that doesn't need composer or an instrument. It is a music that is simply there, a constant and gentle presence in your life. A quirky fact: some historians believe that the Aztecs' musical traditions, which were often performed with flutes, drums, and rattles, were not just for religious ceremonies, but were also an attempt to replicate the natural sounds of their environment, a kind of artistic homage to the music of the lake and the forest. You sit in the quiet of your home, your family asleep around you, and you just listen. You feel a deep sense of peace, a quiet satisfaction that comes from a life lived in harmony with the natural world. This is not the loud, chaotic music of the city, with its drums and its ceremonial chants. This is a quieter, more personal music, a lullaby that is all your own. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' highly developed sense of aesthetics, with their intricate featherwork, their beautiful pottery, and their complex poetry, was a natural extension of a culture that was so deeply connected to the beauty of the natural world, or a deliberate act of cultural expression designed to elevate their society. You remember a funny story your grandfather told about a man who, in his eagerness to create a beautiful song, tried to play a musical instrument made from a dry gourd. He ended up with a series of loud, discordant squeaks, a lesson in the importance of listening to the natural music around you before you try to create your own. You, on the other hand, are a quiet listener, a silent audience to a magnificent, ongoing concert. The moon, a crescent of pure white light, casts a soft, gentle glow over the lake, a peaceful end to a long, good day. The moon is now a high, brilliant presence in the sky, and the music of the canals has faded into a peaceful hum. The night is a time for rest, for sleep, for the body and mind to recover from the labors of the day. But even in the quiet of the night, your mind, as a gardener's mind always does, turns to the future, not just of tomorrow, but of the generations to come. You think about the legacy of the Chinampa, about the profound and lasting impact of this way of life. This isn't just a temporary solution, a clever trick to get by on a lake. This is a system built to last, a way of life designed for 1,000 years. The Chinampa itself is a testament to this longevity. It is not just a floating garden. It is a living, breathing thing that grows stronger and more resilient with each passing season. With every dredging of canal beds and every new layer of rich mud you add, the Chinampa grows a little higher, a little firmer, a little more fertile. It is a system that is constantly renewing itself, a kind of eternal youth that ensures it will be there for your children and for their children after them. A quirky fact: some of the original Chinampas from the Aztec era are still in use today, a living testament to the incredible sustainability and resilience of this ancient form of agriculture. You think about the knowledge that you are passing on to your children, the stories and the lessons that you learned from your grandfather. This knowledge of the rhythms of the lake, of the properties of the plants, of the importance of community, is not just a collection of facts. It is a legacy, a living thing that will be passed down from generation to generation. It is a kind of immortality, a way for you to live on in the lives of your children, a gentle, quiet thread that connects the past to the future. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' lack of a widespread writing system for commoners was a deliberate choice to ensure that knowledge was passed on orally, strengthening communal bonds and the power of the family, or if it was a simple matter of a lack of a widespread, accessible writing medium. You, of course, just know that your stories and your lessons are a powerful and precious legacy, a gift that is more valuable than any amount of cacao beans. You remember a funny story your grandfather told about a man who, in a desperate attempt to create a legacy for himself, tried to carve his name into a giant stone. He spent his entire life working on it, but the stone was so big and his tools were so small that he only managed to carve a single letter. He learned that a true legacy is not something you carve into stone. It is something you plant in the hearts and minds of your children. You, on the other hand, are planting a legacy with every seed you sow, with every story you tell, and with every lesson you impart. The moon, a high, brilliant presence in the sky, is a silent witness to your quiet, profound act of creation, a peaceful end to a long, good day. The moon is now a high, brilliant presence in the sky, and the music of the canals has faded into a peaceful hum. The night is a time for rest, for sleep, for the body and mind to recover from the labors of the day. But even in the quiet of the night, your mind, as a gardener's mind always does, turns to the future, not just of tomorrow, but of the generations to come. You think about the legacy of the Chinampa, about the profound and lasting impact of this way of life. This isn't just a temporary solution, a clever trick to get by on a lake. This is a system built to last, a way of life designed for 1,000 years. The Chinampa itself is a testament to this longevity. It is not just a floating garden. It is a living, breathing thing that grows stronger and more resilient with each passing season. With every dredging of the canal beds and every new layer of rich mud you add, the Chinampa grows a little higher, a little firmer, a little more fertile. It is a system that is constantly renewing itself, a kind of eternal youth that ensures it will be there for your children and for their children after them. A quirky fact: some of the original Chinampas from the Aztec era are still in use today, a living testament to the incredible sustainability and resilience of this ancient form of agriculture. You think about the knowledge that you are passing on to your children, the stories and the lessons that you learned from your grandfather. This knowledge of the rhythms of the lake, of the properties of the plants, of the importance of community, is not just a collection of facts. It is a legacy, a living thing that will be passed down from generation to generation. It is a kind of immortality, a way for you to live on in the lives of your children, a gentle, quiet thread that connects the past to the future. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' lack of a widespread writing system for commoners was a deliberate choice to ensure that knowledge was passed on orally, strengthening communal bonds and the power of the family, or if it was a simple matter of a lack of a widespread, accessible writing medium. You, of course, just know that your stories and your lessons are a powerful and precious legacy, a gift that is more valuable than any amount of cacao beans. You remember a funny story your grandfather told about a man who, in a desperate attempt to create a legacy for himself, tried to carve his name into a giant stone. He spent his entire life working on it, but the stone was so big and his tools were so small that he only managed to carve a single letter. He learned that a true legacy is not something you carve into stone. It is something you plant in the hearts and minds of your children. You, on the other hand, are planting a legacy with every seed you sow, with every story you tell, and with every lesson you impart. The moon, a high, brilliant presence in the sky, is a silent witness to your quiet, profound act of creation, a peaceful end to a long, good day. The night is now a symphony of sound, a gentle, rhythmic hum that is both peaceful and alive. The frogs continue their steady croaking, the insects their low buzz, and the distant call of a heron echoes across the water. But there is another kind of music that you hear, a more subtle and personal melody. It is the music of the canals, a gentle, hypnotic song that is a soundtrack to your life. The sound of the water lapping against the reeds is a soft, percussive beat. The gentle, rhythmic slosh of your canoe as it nudges against the dock is a low, comforting bass note, and the distant, soft murmur of the wind as it whispers through the tall maize stalks is a high, ethereal melody. This is the music of your world, a natural and beautiful symphony that you've been hearing since the day you were born. It is a music that is never the same, yet always the same. It changes with the seasons, with the time of day, and with the moods of the lake. It is a music that doesn't need a composer or an instrument. It is a music that is simply there, a constant and gentle presence in your life. A quirky fact: some historians believe that the Aztecs' musical traditions, which were often performed with flutes, drums, and rattles, were not just for religious ceremonies, but were also an attempt to replicate the natural sounds of their environment, a kind of artistic homage to the music of the lake and the forest. You sit in the quiet of your home, your family asleep around you, and you just listen. You feel a deep sense of peace, a quiet satisfaction that comes from a life lived in harmony with the natural world. This is not the loud, chaotic music of the city, with its drums and its ceremonial chants. This is a quieter, more personal music, a lullaby that is all your own. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs' highly developed sense of aesthetics, with their intricate featherwork, their beautiful pottery, and their complex poetry, was a natural extension of a culture that was so deeply connected to the beauty of the natural world, or a deliberate act of cultural expression designed to elevate their society. You remember a funny story your grandfather told about a man who, in his eagerness to create a beautiful song, tried to play a musical instrument made from a dry gourd. He ended up with a series of loud, discordant squeaks, a lesson in the importance of listening to the natural music around you before you try to create your own. You, on the other hand, are a quiet listener, a silent audience to a magnificent, ongoing concert. The moon, a crescent of pure white light, casts a soft, gentle glow over the lake, a peaceful end to a long, good day. The music of the canals is a gentle, rhythmic hum that has now become a part of your own being. You are no longer just listening to the sound of the night. You are a part of them. The gentle lapping of the water, the low croaking of the frogs, the soft rustle of the wind. It's all a part of a beautiful, unhurried rhythm that is the very essence of your world. You have come to the end of a long, good season. The final harvest is in. The last of the crops are stored in the Chinampa, once a busy place of work and life, is now a quiet, fallow field, a sleeping giant waiting for the new season to begin. You feel a deep sense of peace, a quiet satisfaction that comes from a job well done, a life well lived. The anxieties of the floods and the droughts, the challenges of the pests and the demands of the market, they are all behind you now. All that is left is the gentle calm of the night, the profound peace that comes from a season of work, a season of life. You are a man of the lake, a man of the earth, and a man of the rhythm, a gentle, peaceful soul in a magnificent world of water and light.